He's right here. He's right here. So a few years ago, I was at a Pesach program, and I spoke about the Haggadah, and I got people really angry, and like people they wanted to lynch me. And essentially, I got up and I said that your kids come home with these books on the Haggadah, and to treat the Haggadah like it's a Gemara. Why did they say this, and why does it say that, and you said this in the Haggadah and it says that, and what does this mean and what does that mean? They treat it like a Gemara. And the whole purpose of Pesach, Chazal designed it as storytelling. And they deliberately designed it as a story. And it's the telling of a story. And they designed it as theater. In theater, you dress up. You have props. And the props, everyone knows when you go to the theater, they know the sword's not real, the gun's not real, they know the uniforms are not real, and you have blood and the blood's not, everyone knows that. But it's theater, and theater helps you tell a story. Theater is one of the most powerful tools for storytelling, which became ultimately the movies. Just theater is more powerful because it's live human beings. And Pesach is the antithesis of learning. Because in learning, you always try to chap a chiddush, trying to figure out exactly what did it mean, how did it mean, the pasuk said like this, the pasuk said like that. The entire purpose of the Pesach Seder is to have a theater play in which you tell a story, and your children and you are the actors and the participants in the play. So you eat maror to remind you. So that's like, that would be in a theater, but it's not about in any way, it's not about any form of learning. And what do we say in the Seder? Kol marba l'saper b'yitzias Mitzrayim. But it doesn't say kol marba lilmod. What does it say? Kol marba lilmod. There's no learning. It's not a night for learning. It's not Nittelnacht, but it's not for learning. So it says to take all those books that your teachers gave your kids and throw them in the trash because they're the opposite of what Judaism wants you to do in this night. And then we talked a little bit about Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim in the rest of the year, which we'll come back to. But Pesach by the Seder is a proactive play in which everyone in the family participates. And the kids are part of the play, and they recite the Manashtan, and they see all these things. And it is ritualized, like any play is ritualized. Like every play follows, there's a script. The Seder has 15 acts, Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas, Yachatz, Magid, and all that is a design of a way to tell a story. And the purpose of the story is the Sophists is trying to evoke an emotional bond, an emotional knowledge, and emotional awareness. And it's nothing to do with learning, and therefore throw away your books and all. There were a bunch of teachers there who obviously had prepared very hard, the kids and all. And by the Kotler Seder, we do not allow nor engage in asking questions on the Haggadah. Because we want to try to connect to the fundamental underlying principles and the underlying story. And if you don't bond the Seder night to the real story of Yitzias Mitzrayim, you failed in your telling. So we have to go through the principles. There are a number of principles that are the key elements of the story. They are the main elements that tie into the story, that make the story what it is. So number one is that the Jews were being oppressed. We don't know why they were being oppressed. We have to understand the why. The Jews were being oppressed, and they were slaves, and they were not a nation. And there's a bad guy, Pari, and then God, in this ritualized enactment, Hashem could have killed Pari in 1 minute, right? Hashem could have taken him out, nuclear missile, boom, he's gone. So the whole dialogue between Moshe, Pari, and God about freeing the Jews is also artificial. It's not real. What?
Because you didn't need power.
You didn't power. And if you want to take him out, so take him out. He has no power.
The Rachaim says, "Vayhi b'shalach paroi sa'om." Vayhi is a lashon tsar.
Lashon tsar. It's a sad.
But they're leaving. So why is it tsar? Because paroi, b'shalach paroi, paroi sent. The fact that we had to, in our minds, come on to paroi
to send this out.
That's the Vayhi.
But where does a paroi come into the equation in the first place? So we need to understand the story. If you any story, we want to understand it, not understand the words of the story. We have to understand the basic contour of the story. Why did they go into Gullus? Why didn't God just take them out when he wants to take them out? Why does he allow them to fall to that level of Tumah? And how does all this tie into becoming a nation? And everything that happens in the Midbar after that is all a part of the Yitzhak of that. And this is the story of the formation of the Jews. And the story of the formation of the Jews is so central in Judaism that we have probably maybe 20% of the mitzvahs tie in one way or another. I once did the math, it's more. Tie in one way or another to Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. So here's an easy one, but it's a little surprising. Yom Kippur. What do you say in Yom Kippur davening? We say Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. What does Yom Kippur have to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim? There's so many things.
What does Kiddush have to do with Yetzias Mitzrayim?
Kiddush Yetzias Mitzrayim.
I mean, we say it every day, Kriya Shema, 3 times a day.
3 times a day. And then tefillin and mezuzah and all. And there's 1,000 things going on in our lives that this fundamental story is the essential tale of the Jewish people. And all year long, we kind of feed it to us. We're surrounded with it. We surround ourselves with it. And then on Pesach by night is when we tell the story to our children to ensure that they know the story and that they're emotionally bonded, they're emotionally connected to it, and that they're able to carry it over.
Beautiful. I'll just throw in, since it's interactive here. So it's the primary vehicle to transmit Masorah to our kids, right? That's what Pesach said. It's the whole point of it, which is, so why are we doing it like you're saying, like a story? Because, hey Steve. Is that for Steve?
No, this YouTube.
The idea of telling a story to convey our lessons, because how do our children really learn from us, right? Children learn not from what we say, from what we do, right? It's examples. Think about it. What's the whole Torah is a story. We learn the halachas from the story. That's Torah. Now the Torah Shabbat Peh is all the way around. It's a series of halachas, right? And every once in a while you have a story. Mishnah will tell you a story or whatever. If you look at what's Pirkei Avos, why do we call it Pirkei Avos? Why don't we say Pirkei Rabbeinu Pirkei Avos? Because the lessons of Pirkei Avos, it's like the way that a parent would teach. What's the most common refrain in Pirkei Avos? Hu haya omer. It doesn't mean, Rav Elazar omer, but hu haya omer means this wasn't something that he just said. Something that it was a mantra. Something that he
said over and over.
Said over and over. He lived it. He preached it.
He was identified.
This was something that was him, right? That's the way Pirkei Avos is taught. Those are the lessons of Avos, or life lessons. Things. That's the same idea. That's why the Pesach Seder is this sequence.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, the meeting.
Next week, same time.
As Plato says, the one who tells the stories control the world.
Right.
The one who tells the stories, the one who tells the story, controls the story, or tells the story, controls the world.
It's narrative. The one who controls the narrative.
That's by Putin. Whoever controls the narrative controls.
Gets to write the script. So, why? And I asked this of you. Why did Hashem send the Yidden to Mitzrayim? Like, why put them down there?
It's all of Rabbi.
And the bris ben Absarim, it's
You're not platitude me now.
No,
right?
I don't have a clear answer.
Like, why?
Why? Say whatever you want.
No, I'm asking you why. Practically, why send the Jews to Mitzrayim?
That's what I said, that your kids have to go through a certain amount of things, and then they'll come out the chosen nation. They have to wash them before they could.
No.
Before they could get the Torah. But Hashem told this to him before Bechiras Yosef. Hashem told Avraham Avinu Tiyeh Zerach Be'eretz Lehem.
Okay, so what does it have to do with
Avodah
Mitzrayim?
Rini Yosam. Achiyotze Chush Gadol.
I
So-
think that
Totally before.
Hashem wanted to make the people his people, and the only way to do that is to rescue them.
Why?
Because maybe they didn't. They didn't
I
help.
mean, Hashem had a relationship, just to argue. Hashem had a relationship with Avram Avinu before Avram Avinu went to Mitzrayim also. And before Yitzchak went to Mitzrayim, Yitzchak never went to Mitzrayim, but Avram went down to Mitzrayim. Hashem had a relationship with Avram, he had a relationship with Yitzchak, he had a relationship with Yaakov. And he had a relationship with the Shvatim. So why send them there in the first place?
Why?
So, now what you're saying, although it could sound like pop psychology, has some truth to it, that you get forged. Chazal talk about that. Korah Barzal, you get forged in adversity and all that, and that's where you build your strength. But it's still, I wouldn't find that satisfying, because it's like, it's so fundamental in the Jewish story. I mean, this is about character. So put us into Donbass in Ukraine and build our character, you know. The Ukrainian people, their character's being forged now. So this is the central story of the Jews. And the way you're describing it, it's almost like it's a side method to achieve a goal. In other words, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, because Chazal say it, Kur HaBarzal, Mitzrayim was that Kur HaBarzal. The problem I have with that, and the reason why it could feel like it's a bit of a platitude, is because then it's a side thing for a central goal. So like, you want to toughen up your kid, so you could have had him box with Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali. You could have put him in the ghetto in Williamsburg, you know, in Bed-Stuy. You could have put him in Ukraine and Donbass. So Hashem chose to put him in Mitzrayim. It's too almost side pat for the central thing. So totally, you started to talk about Bechirus Yosef, but as he said, first of all, it was predicted before, and also like Bechirus Yosef, how does that tie in? It was a punishment?
No, but it ties into Mitzrayim. Why Dafka Mitzrayim? How they got to Mitzrayim? And there's something about Mitzrayim in general. The nation of Mitzrayim, the people who they are, who they were.
Which is?
They're very, I forget what it was, the culture.
I'm going to assume that Mitzrayim was probably the most powerful nation, but like the
Yeah.
power.
They were the world
culturally,
power.
Culturally, they were very against the Eitzazach of the Yid.
They were
As
the world
opposed to-
power.
As opposed
But
to
there was
other
no
countries. And
So
other,
we're getting warm now. We're like pin the tail.
No, but
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was
We're getting much warmer.
But there was no Yid back then.
But we were
The
Yid.
Israelites.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
Yid, our nation, our, you know.
Roman-
Aaron, what do you say there? You can unmute yourself if you want to talk.
I know that. I'm just trying to think. I have nothing smart to say.
Tully's taking us into the right maze of paths, at least, so that we can try to find the way. But it's certainly really nothing to do in the simple sense with the ched of Avram Avinu. He didn't have betachin, so Hashem said that also doesn't fully explain it.
Why?
All that's true. It's tired, it's true, but it doesn't fully explain what's going on here.
You could say 100 things. I mean,
So tell me,
What's
give me something that runs me over like a Mack truck.
I'll give you something. Hashem wanted to show the only way the Jews could survive throughout the generations if you're together and you love each other. Why? Because the whole reason you went to Mitzrayim, like he said, what was the cause? Of course, he predicted it, but then because Yosef, because the brothers fought.
It does feel
and then later,
to me.
And later, they went out and that's a couple of Torah.
It does feel to me
So
that
it's not-
you're giving a variation, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but a variation on the forged in strength. Now you're saying unified in strength in Mitzrayim, but it's not central to who we are as a people. And Pari is so central in our memory. Our historical memory is all about Pari and Mitzrayim and the Makkos.
What he
and
tried to do to us, he tried to take us down to the level, it says.
Why send us there in the first place?
Yeah, because that's the lowest level of Timah.
So what?
I don't think any other nation, which other
So
nation
what?
could have
So
sent us
why do
that
you have
time?
to send us to the lowest level of Tumah?
The same
In order
que-
to get back, obviously.
Why send us to have to get back?
Why?
You know my Shabbat Kamyan? You know my Shabbat Kamyan? You know my Shabbat? There was a Yiddi, he came after the Holocaust. He was a big chayla. He was mentally ill. and he had learned in Kamenetz, and he was a massive Talmud Chacham, but he was crazy. He lived in the dormitory, in the hallway of the dormitory at BMG, and he used to hang around in Tells, in Lakewood, and in all the Yerpeshi yeshivas. So he was a big Letz, and he was a very, very funny man. He was a big Talmud Chacham, but he wasn't well, unfortunately. He used to play master chess player. He had many lines like, how can you Mekadesh Lefani? He says, Rekoid Lefani is Mekadeshes. A lot of great lines. Very, very smart guy. So he once went collecting in Tells. So they said, Moshe Abba, what do you, every bacher, every yeshiva bacher in the 60s, 70s, and 80s knew him in America. Every bacher. As a matter of fact, they sent him to the Knesset Gedolah. They paid the guys in BMG to raise money. He wasn't normal, but they sent him to the Knesset Gedolah. He would only drink Coke from a can, Pepsi from a can, because it has much better gas. So he went collecting in Tells. They said, why are you collecting, Moshe Abba? He said, I need money. He said, what do you need money to go to Lakewood? He says, what'd you come for to collect? What'd you collect me for?
To go to Lakewood.
To go to Lakewood. So Moshe Abba, so why'd you come in the first place? He says, Zug mir, die trinkst Kava. Ja, ich trink Kava. Stellst Milch in Kava? Ja. Was stellst du Milch? Was ist bitte? Was trinkst du Kava? You know? But my point is, we can't do a circular reasoning. We have to understand the core reasoning. Why are we put in Mitzrayim? Why Parai? Why this situation? Why is Hashem fighting with them? Why do we have to be redeemed? What is going on here? In the heart and soul of it, and I want to get hit with a Mack truck that it should be so real.
You're asking us. You said.
I'm asking you.
Why
I
put him
want you to think a little more. I'm pushing you to think more.
Essentially,
Same reason why we're pushing us to think more. That's what Hashem's doing to us.
Oh yeah, but that's a little bit of. I'm not denying the pop psychology,
No.
the truth in the pop psychology.
It's like my daughter was hit. And this didn't happen. Look what happened. You
But
learned
what's the
something.
Siddhartha can
What
say
happened?
that-
The same thing. What the same
So,
exact question you're asking.
according to
now.
what you're
Same
saying,
exact question
we
you're
could have
asking.
been with Idi Amin in Uganda. According to the way you're telling
But that's
me,
what I'm saying. No, Mitzrayim. There's a reason
Oh.
why Dafka Mitzrayim. I
why
understand
Dafka
that.
Mitzrayim?
There is a reason why Dafka Mitzrayim.
Yeah, so
That-
let's root in on that. Zero
That's
whatever.
I know them. The Mitzrayim wanted it. They wanted to be oiker. They wanted to just destroy the Yiddishkeit, and that's what it said.
So
the only
was
three
it
things that we
Stalin?
had.
Would Stalin have been the same?
No, they didn't care. They didn't care to kill us. They wanted to kill the inside of us.
That's
The
what
That's what
That's
Stalin
what
did. He
Stalin
banned Judaism. Stalin arrested every Jew, whoever was teaching Judaism, he arrested.
Stalin is
So Pari and Stalin are the same, but it's just different age. So to take it along Tully's path, why did Hashem create a Jewish people?
or Lagoya.
No, come on. Why did he create that? That's like you sound like an Aish guy, you know.
There's no good answer.
All these guys.
Depends who you ask.
Why did he create a Jewish people? Very simple. The world was created for a purpose. Hashem wants humanity to reach its purpose. Hashem gave it a shot without the Jews. It didn't work without the Jews. So Hashem said, I need to create a nation that's going to fulfill my purpose, take the world to my purpose.
Which is?
We'll come back to the purpose in a minute. We'll come back to it. We're not losing sight of that. There is a
So
purpose.
that's what the Yidden were created.
There is a purpose. Hashem creates Adam Rishon.
Tikkun Olam.
Adam, let's not, yeah,
That's
Tikkun
what I'm
Olam, but let's not lose it with the fake Tikkun
With
Olam.
platitudes.
With the platitude of Tikkun Olam.
Okay.
With what's his name? With the Meshuggah, the guy Michael Lerner. Let's be real. Hashem goes ahead and he creates man for a purpose. The purpose is to get close to Hashem. That is the purpose. And you can only get close to Hashem. Lisaneg Adam Nivra, Lisaneg al Hashem. That's the only reason you were created. Lisaneg al Hashem. And to do that, you have to become like Hashem. And Hashem gives Adam Rishon the chance to do it. Now, Adam Rishon sitting in Gan Eden. What happens if he doesn't eat from the Eitz Hadas? Is there a Chaim Kanievsky ever? No. Is there an Avram Avinu? No. Is there a Yitzchak? No. Is there a Yaakov? No.
Why are you saying that? Why?
That's what the Torah says. I'm not the one who
It could
says
have
it.
been much bigger, much better. Could have been. We could have thousands.
But it
of
wouldn't be
times.
that.
Oh, but it wouldn't be. But the Jewish people, there'd be no Jewish people. There would have been no Ra in the world.
But who
Oh, one
who
second. There would have been
needs
no
Jewish
Ra.
people?
There would have
Right?
been
Who needs
there-
Jewish people?
exactly. There would have been no Ra.
So then, what's the purpose?
So Adam Rishon had the opportunity to fulfill the purpose of creation in an instant, and he didn't.
Which was what? What was the
He didn't have a.
The purpose was to
Not
become
to-
like Hashem, and through that to be Lisanig al Hashem.
Yeah, but he
Adam
didn't
never
have a-
Lisanig al Hashem.
He couldn't fulfill the purpose in an instant. The thing was not to do, not something. It was. It wasn't.
So
By,
every
doing
instant
that,
was a
if you
challenge.
would have
So he continued. He
exercised,
did continue doing it until he.
but if you would have exercised self-restraint,
Until when?
and you would not have done it, that would have been the tikkun.
But he did.
When he had the opportunity, and by overcoming the
It was a
opportunity.
few hours or a few days.
Whatever
or a few
that
years.
day, it would have been the end of the, and he never would have
See,
died.
that was the challenge.
That was, and there was no maves.
So
there was
up
no
until
death.
then, he never had a challenge.
That's right. There was no there was no death. There was no ra.
So why did Hashem create the snake? Go back then.
That's the opportunity. That snake was there
So
to
the
give
snake
him.
and the Mitzrayim are the same idea.
We're coming to that in a moment. You're getting there because you're on the path. So there's an opportunity for man to choose Lasanik al Hashem or to choose a path of Tumah. And man fails. And Hashem waits 2,000 years till Avram Avinu for Toyev Avayu, the years of Toyev Avayu, for man to come back to him. And he doesn't. And Hashem says, we need a Klal Yisrael. We need to have a nation that this nation is going to be separate from the other nations, and it's going to be the one. I can no longer expect all my children to lead the way. I have to have an Amanifchar that lives, Kedoshim Tiyel Hashem Lekecha, lives with Kedusha, lives with Tahira, and that nation will be the nation that's going to bring the world to its tachlis. Sort of like what Itzkel said before, of like Or Lagoyim. It's not really Or Lagoyim because it's much deeper. That is the purpose of creation, is to bring the world to Lisanig al Hashem. So Avram Avinu's job is to do that.
What does Lasanig Hashem mean? What does it mean?
To have the pleasure of a relationship with the divine. The pain of life, we could talk in Kabbalistic term, the pain of life is the pain of loneliness. There's no pain like loneliness. It's the pain of separation. That was a separation of the Mayim al Yonim, Mayim al. Once man separated from Hashem, the human being is essentially lonely, alone in the universe, and all of man's efforts are to ease that loneliness and to reconnect to his divine origins. And the greater degree that a person connects to Hashem, the less separate the person is, the less lonely the person is, the more simchas achayim that person has, and the more eternal simcha the person has. And the ultimate level is where you reconnect to the Kisei HaKavod. What do we say about Yaakov Avinu? Yaakov is chakuk on the Kisei HaKavod. He's right there on the Kisei HaKavod. So this idea of taking a nation and isolating it from the Umas, and by doing that, you're going to create a nation that's going to be separate. And that nation, what's it going to do? It's going to go live in the world, and it's going to bring out Kadosh Baruch Hu into the world, and it's going to change with time and history. It's meant to change the whole world and bring Kedusha to the world.
So why do you create all the other nations for the same exact reason?
Well, they were there before. Everybody was there. All the nations were given the opportunity
Yeah, but he
in
created
Adam
them, right?
Rishon. They were all children of Adam Rishon. So everyone had that opportunity. And they always had the opportunity. That's the story we tell about Kadosh Baruch Hu offering Torah at Sinai to everybody. Everyone has the opportunity. But
Yeah, but
because
he didn't create them
Avram
with the
chose
same-
Hashem,
Same yearning. They weren't created the same way.
they had the
Even-
same yearning, but Avram made the choice. Avram was the Yachid. He chose Hashem. Avram Hikaras Bayrai. He chose HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore he was Zeicher to create a Jewish people. So what's your mission? Our mission is to take the tumah of the world, to dispel it, and to bring the presence of Hashem into the world.
So why Mitzrayim?
Okay, so now we have a mission. What's the mission? Bring the presence of Hashem into the world. Where was the greatest lack of presence in the world in the
That's what
time?
he said.
That's what you said, Tully. It was Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the Makara Tumah. Pari was the god. He considered himself. He was the Tanan Ayam. He was a god. He considered himself to be a god of the entire world. It says he was one of the kings who ruled over the entire civilized world. And Mitzrayim's definition of life. This is definitional. Definition of life was the antithesis, the polar opposite of the definition of life of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael's definition of life is that a person has a neshama, he's chelik alakami mal, and he aspires to his neshama, and only by satisfying your neshama and by bringing out your neshama are you going to have simchas achayim and l'san Hashem, and you're going to fulfill your purpose, and will you ever be fulfilled? And Mitzrayim said, no, you don't have to do it. It's by physical
external pleasures.
Physical external pleasures, that's going to help you do it. And there is no, you're not a chelik alakami mal. You're not by definition, you're not a divine being.
Yeah, but that's the only way for Pari to stay in control.
We're going to come to Pari in a minute. Pari is an outcome of that. He's not the cause of it. The ideology comes first. First comes the ideology that you're not a godly being. If you're not a godly being, then I can rule over you.
Right,
If you're a chelik alakami mal, I don't have the right
Correct.
to oppress you.
That's why I thought it came from Pari, because in order for Pari to be so powerful, to be the ruler, was
So you
give them
pushed
all
it
the
that
external pleasures and don't let them connect to God
Right.
like this.
Right, but and more.
So you're saying that ideology
More
came
foundational is that you are not a divine being. Your neshama is not a chelik alakami mal. Because your neshama is not a chelik alakami mal, therefore your satisfaction is only going to come from the physical, and therefore I, as a human being, I can rule over. If I'm more powerful than you, if my goof is more powerful, this is the German ideology. If my goof is more powerful than your goof, I'm the guy in charge. I'm your boss. Why do we say you can't be an Eved? Why is it? What's wrong with Avdus? Person has freedom. Where does their freedom come from? Their freedom comes from their divine essence that they have in neshama. So their neshama is much greater. You don't have a right to oppress my neshama. You can oppress my goof, but you don't have a right to control my neshama. So the world of Mitzrayim was the apex society of a world of Tumah, where there was no presence of Hashem left in the world. Now that took time to happen. It started with Nimrod, it started with Bavel, but by the time we got to Mitzrayim, there was a massive society that was ruling the world. That means the Tumah, the Chet of Adam Rishon, that notion that you're going to find satisfaction elsewhere became so powerful, it ruled the universe. And the world was gripped by it. Our job was to go into the Tumah and dispel it. That was the purpose. So Hashem put us to work right away. Our job is to go in there and dispel it. And if in truth the neshama of the person is as great as we think it is, because it's godly, then it's going to prevail. And it's at the end of the day, it will be more powerful than any nation or any physical being. So Hashem sets up a paradigm. The most powerful nation, and you have the weakest people, the Jews. But the Jews, insofar as they're connected to Hashem, they're really more powerful. Lahavli, you saw it with the Russians, because Stalin was the most similar in modern times. Give me a second. Hello? Joe, how are you? Can I call you back in about 20? This number? Thank you. Okay.
So that was like the next challenge from Chet Egel. Not from, sorry, Chet Egel is also a challenge from the mission.
So we were put right to work, which is to go into the world of Tumah, weaken it, dispel it, and don't let it grip the world. And unfortunately, in battle, sometimes your victory was not that strong. We fell to the 49th level of Tumah. So we did fall. But we kept...
To the 50th.
We didn't get to it. What does that mean? That means they couldn't, no matter how powerful this ideology was and this philosophy,
couldn't get to the
and this
actual...
Tumah of the world, it could not extinguish the divine spark.
It's impossible to make the hard reset.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Chazal mean when they say 50th level of Tumah. They couldn't extinguish. They can get you to do all the Averis in the world. At the end of the day, they could not extinguish
The guilt.
the neshama, the chelik alakal, the neshama, some connection the human being had to Hashem. And no matter how powerful Tumah got, Tumah did not have the power. It's a weakness of Tumah. If you think about it, it shows a weakness. Tumah can't win.
Tumah can't.
It can't win. So now you have to nurture the spark. You have to nurture the flame. You have to
Spark
rebuild
was
it.
always there. That small spark.
You
was
can't.
always there.
It can't
It's
win.
impossible to destroy
Tumah
it.
cannot win. And
It's
that
powerful tumah is hugely negative. Doesn't
It can
win.
cause tremendous havoc.
Correct.
tremendous
So-
damage. 4/5. Chazal tells 4/5 die out. All the bad things happen,
But it won't win.
but it doesn't win.
That was in Mitzrayim, and that's why Zeichel Tis Mitzrayim has to always go back to.
Always go back to that. Tumah can't win. And as a matter of fact, the even the Jews who made it out, many of them were the Avodah Zarah, and there were terrible problems in the Midbar. Tumah is very powerful. Tumah can damage you, but it can't win.
See, attack could damage you. That's what I was saying. I said it by mistake, but the Chet Weigel, think about it. They just came out of Mitzrayim. They just saw Hashem, and still they don't care.
They were
Chet Weigel.
damaged. They were damaged.
They were damaged.
They were terribly damaged. But even though, and this is the lesson, the divine spark of the Jew, which is that neshama, your chelik l'kam imal, is so powerful it can never be extinguished. And then if it can be extinguished, you always have the opportunity to rebuild it. So it might take 10,000 years. It may take 100,000 years. Chazal tells us it won't take more than 6,000 years. But eventually it's going to
So
prevail.
what is Tikkun Olam? What when
We'll
they
come
left
back to
Mitzrayim,
Tikkun.
what did they make better? It was the same cesspool like when they came.
They,
So you said a light on the world. What kind of light were they?
Well-
They left darkness.
well,
they
here's
left
the point.
murder, and they
You have
left,
two nations.
and 4/5 of the
I mean,
Judaism were
let's
killed.
use
They
in
got
modern
to
terms.
Sinai.
Let's use modern terminology.
Imagine 4/5 of Lakewood gets.
No, but they got to
one day.
Sinai because they went through Mitzrayim.
But let's do modern terminology.
I don't think they would get to Har Sinai if not for that.
Maybe not.
It's a goal. Putin doesn't have to lose to have lost, right? We all understand that.
Putin lost.
There's a shifting of power
Yes.
where he doesn't have to lose to lost. He could destroy Ukraine, but he lost.
He lost, yeah.
Well, he lost, and he knows it. And America's rubbing it in his face, and they're undermining. And he may still come back.
He didn't lose nothing.
Of course he
As
lost.
soon
He's
as
done.
he behaves, the world's going to come.
Okay,
for
okay,
him.
But he
the
has no.
point-
But he's not a war superpower. He's
The
not a
point-
world power.
It's
He just
it's-
proved
let's
everyone.
not get
He
lost
proved
in it.
everyone.
Let's not get
Right.
lost in the muscle.
Right.
Yeah.
The point is that
Right.
that it doesn't have the power, so it can't win. And therefore, because it can't win, we have all of history in front of us to go ahead and to bring Hashem's presence into the world. Now, you might argue that the mission's not doable, but let me tell you something. We're never going to lose. That Pischei Shel Machat, we will never lose, ever. Therefore, we can be patient. Hashem's going to give us a few thousand years, a lot of problems along the way, but we beat the most powerful force of Tumah, and you can't wipe it out. And Tumah was nechlash then. So not only did we beat it, it weakened it. And then in every generation it gets weaker and weaker because Klal Yisrael has this eternal strength. That's what it means we become a nation. What does it mean become an eternal nation? With a bris with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says, you're strong enough that I could tie my fate to you. Hashem is dependent on the Jew. Who's Hashem? What's Hashem's name? He's the Lekei Yisrael. He's the Lekei Avram Yitzchak V'Yaakov. So Hashem has tied his fate, not his personal fate. Hashem has tied his mission
Saying
in the
without
universe.
Eden, there's no Hashem, technically.
What?
Saying without Eden.
Without you, Hashem's
Doesn't
whole mission
exist.
fails. So Hashem has tied his presence in the world to the Jew, and that's what this bris means. Hashem says, I'm never going to let go of you. I'm never going to let it go. I cannot change my... Hashem said, I can't change my mind. Now, why can't I change my mind? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to fail. Because you have that koyach of Tayyip. And the whole dynamic with Parai is almost like playing with a toad, you know? It's the little frog, you're playing with him. And Parai's like, he's almost a ping pong. He's not even relevant. He wasn't even such a bad guy relative to a lot of the dictators in history in terms of brutality and all. He was a bad guy, you know? Hitler was also a bad guy. Stalin, Khmelnytsky, well, plenty of bad guys. So Parai was another bad guy. But he was much more than that. He was the manifestation of much worse than murdering people. Of the Tumah, that there's no Kedusha
inside.
and there's no Neshama and there's no godliness to the human being. And he goes out there, and Hashem shows the Jews, let me show you something. This guy, I can do whatever I want with him. And the more you see that, the stronger you get. And this goes back to what Itzko was saying before. The more you see that he doesn't matter, he's really not so strong. But it doesn't start with that. It starts with the fact that your neshama, the Geula only comes after they're in Mitzrayim, and their neshama's still not falling to the 50th level. And after that, after you have that eternal strength, Hashem says, okay, we're going to nurture the spark, we're going to take it, and with that, we're going to fulfill the mission of the world. That's where Itzchak talks about Tikkun Olam and all. That is the Tikkun Olam, is what Klal Yisrael is going to do for the world. And by seeing this happen to Parai, they're like, ooh, we're not impressed with you guys. Like, if Hashem could do this to Parai, and he could do it to Oig and Sichain and the Canaanim, Ra and Tumah is nowhere near as powerful as we thought it might be. And therefore don't be in a spoil. That's where Sharansky can get up and tell the Russians drop dead. Which is what he did. The whole world was terrified of the Soviets. A few Jews, they said, listen, you know.
A few sticks.
A few Jews. Like, we're not impressed with you. The whole world would have defined the power politics, that Soviet Russia would be there forever. I remember when I was growing up, it was immutable. You couldn't beat it. They had nuclear weapons. They were there. They were like we say that if Hashem went to taking us out, we'd still be Avodim prior to Mitzrayim. It's true, because that would have been the end of the divine spark of man. If Pi would have extinguished our divine spark, humanity for all generations would be enslaved. If not this, if his name's not Pari, his name is Stalin. His name is
just continue.
The world doesn't have a hope, and if it doesn't have a hope, Taka, in the physical we can enslave. We can do whatever we want with you. You don't matter. Human beings don't matter because you're not godly. That's why the Goyim like the story of Mitzrayim and Pesach so much, because it kind of talks to them. The message gets through to them that no, you can't oppress people. You can't enslave them. Let
but
my
even
people
if
go.
wants to be someone to have a higher power, not just live in the physical realm.
And ultimately, when you lose that, you lose your freedom. And then everything else that happens is all the play around us, the elements around it. But this is the heart and soul of it. And so we start out in Mitzrayim. We're set into the mission. Our neshama, and this is where it comes back to what you were saying, Itzikel. Our neshama gets battle hardened. You can't extinguish it. It gets battle hardened for the mission, and we're being put to the mission. And we weaken the Tum Mitzrayim. We knock out Pari. We go to Eretz Yisrael. We're still not strong enough, and throughout history, we keep battling this battle to ultimately to get to Mashiach, which is when Mala Kol Haaretz. You talk about Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam is Ki Mala Kol Haaretz Deus Hashem. When the whole world has knowledge of Hashem, that is Tikkun Olam. Nothing else, not Steve Jobs, and not the new iPhone, and not technology, and not the metaverse, and all that. Ki Mala Kol Haaretz Deus Hashem, not the private jets with salt and all the stuff from Jews of today. So when the world has Deus Hashem, the world what does Deya mean? Deya is to be connected. But Deya is an awareness. Is a very deep bond of connection between man.
So
the ultimate
they
bond
don't
of
have to
connection.
be Jews. They can just know that there's a.
Sorry?
They don't have to convert.
No.
They just have to know there's a God in the world. Right. So a Muslim, they're doing a good job spreading it. They're helping us.
The Rambam talks about that in the arc of history. The other Rishonim talk about it also, that there's an awareness that develops of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's like they're being primed. So they don't really understand Hashem. Muslims don't understand Hashem. They don't have the concept of that we have of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
What?
But they do have a sense that there's one God.
They have a concept of the what?
That we have the sense of what is the midus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what is the essence of Hashem.
How do you know that? They have masjids, they have rabbis, they have people that you're in your bubble, and we have a beautiful culture. And you're saying something. How do you know the Arabs have billions? They're selling a product. They're coming a Chum there. They have Lahavdil. How do you know they don't have their Kabbalah? How do
They
you know
don't
that?
have the Jewish definition of God.
So they have a different definition.
Yes, so their definition is not accurate, but at least it's of one God.
Right.
So they have one God, but they don't really know who He is. So it's good. It's better. It's primed. The Rambam said it's primed. You're primed. The people are being primed. They're being primed for Mashiach. They're being primed for this awareness that society is not as it is. Even Christians are waiting for the second coming. They're waiting for the arrival of the Messiah. It's this notion that the world is not as it should be. And to go back to your thing, the world needs a tikkun olam. The world needs to have Mala Arts Deus Hashem.
So again, comes to say tonight, what do I tell my
Come
kids?
say tonight is that,
What
listen,
do I?
kids,
What's the message to the children?
there's a world of Tahira and a world of Toma. There's a Jewish people. Kadoshim Tiyul Hashem Alekacha. Tonight we became a nation. When we became a nation, what did we become? We became the nation of Hashem. When we became a nation, Kadoshim Tiyul Hashem Alekacha. There's only one definition of the Jews in the Torah, right? There's only one definition, besides to the mitzvahs. Kadoshim Tiyu. You're a sacred nation, set aside for a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What does it mean to be Kaddish? Kaddish is to be set aside. You're set aside from the mundane world to be devoted to Hashem. And this happened on this night. And on this night, we reaffirm, we go through the story, and we speak about how we became a nation that went to Har Sinai and got the Torah with a purpose to become the Am Kaddish L'Hashem L'Kacha. To be a sacred nation to Hashem, devoted to Hashem. And our purpose as Jews is to be devoted to Hashem and to His mission, and to use His word to fulfill His mission. And obviously it's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be exciting, it's meant to be interesting, but all that is to evoke interest so that the story becomes the story that enters your heart. But it's not about the Vertlach and all that. All that stuff is distracting from the fundamental experience. Aaron, any thoughts?
No, very interesting happened today. I was thinking that
0409.
which nation, or any nation that tried to be a nation do that, it's very interesting how the Jewish people, right, wrong, you just do whatever you want, were the only people that ever stayed for as long as a nation. You see that there's these people that, these religions, they try to make religions, Christianity, all these things, either fall apart or they don't last. It's very interesting that we see that there's this concept of they believe in Hashem, but still how much more real the Jewish nation is, and to prove it, how we lasted. I mean, is there any other religion besides the Jewish religion that lasted this long?
There are nations that are old, and there are religions that are old, they're not necessarily vibrant. So, Zoroastrians are no longer really around. I met the guy at the bar, but he wasn't Zoroastrian. I'm joking. There are no Zoroastrians. So, but there are nations, the Chinese as an ethnic group. There are old nations that are around, but certainly not devoted to their original
Not
mission.
practicing like that.
Yeah, we're devoted to the same mission. We have the exact same mission. The same words, Kadoshim Tiyul Hashem Alekacha, is the essence of who we are.
And by then, if it stayed, it changed into modern day society.
It morphs. Yeah, it morphs and it changes. And it doesn't.
So what?
It may have trappings of the same, but it's not necessarily the same.
Which we have the same as well. We're also morphing.
Well, we're not morphing in
97
our core idea.
Yeah, but 97% of Judaism, whatever number you want to throw, assimilates, are not Jews anymore.
But
So
the
they're
core
morphing.
idea,
But our core idea.
we still carry a core idea in the world.
But other people also have core ideas. Other nations have core ideas.
Tell me what they are.
What are they?
Yeah, give me one.
The whole what
Worship of ancestors in Japan, blood and soil in Germany, the motherland in Russia. Give me an example. What is the idea? I want to hear the idea. I want to understand.
Our idea?
What is the other ideas? You're telling me there are other nations with fundamental ideas, posits for the world. Democracy?
Oh, we don't have democracy or Judaism.
I'm saying what ideas are there out there that are these powerful ideas?
the Muslims have a whole thing. I mean, again, obviously we have the truth, but
They're only 1,300 years old.
correct. they're only
Give 'em a
59 years
chance.
old. Correct.
So the 15 scenes in the.
I don't know enough to tell you, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a whole world out there, and I'm living in a bubble.
Yeah, there
I'm
is.
not a knowledgeable person, but you know.
Okay.
No, I'm saying I know a little bit about what is fed to me. I really, but how do I know the whole
The
world? There's a world
one
out there.
idea of the Jew has not changed in 2,000 years, in 3,000 years. That has not changed an iota. In other words, you could take Tully and Jackson and put him with Avram Avinu, and you ask Avram Avinu, what's the definition of a Jew?
We'll
Say,
have some-
Kedoshim Tiyul Hashem Leikacha. Yes, Tully, what does it mean? Kedoshim Tiyul Hashem Leikacha. They both understand it. Vayikra b'Shem Hashem. They both understand it. That has not changed an iota. The trappings change, the circumstances change. We might daven a different Shemon Esrei, a different tefillin, a different this, a different ksav. It doesn't matter. Those are
In the same
circumstantial.
ways.
So what are the relevance to the 15 scenes at the Seder?
So we start with Kadesh, Orchatz, Karpas. These are all. It's like a play where you're doing a play in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and that helps coordinate everyone around the table so that you could do this theater together. Without the steps of the theater, without the acts, you can't really do the steps of the theater because everyone's on their own thing. So the acts help coordinate. You know, when we call out the different elements, we're coordinating the theater, and it's an active theater. And an active theater, it should be interactive, alive, geschmack. You taste it, you experience it. It's tactile, it's visual, it's oral. There's all the elements of a play. So just to recap this, Mitzrayim was no accident, and Mitzrayim was no character building. It wasn't a different form of an obstacle course for the creation of the few, the proud, the Marines. It was not something because Yosef and the brothers, they landed up in Mitzrayim, and it wasn't because Avram Avinu was chayta and all that. Well, that's true. That's not the heart and soul of it. The heart and soul of it is, we're here for a reason. There's one reason we're here. And to do that, we engage the enemy. And engaging the enemy means you go into the heart of the enemy and you bring Kedusha into the world. And you get hurt along the way, you lose some men along the way, and collateral damage, but you stay focused on the mission. And 4/5 don't make it out, but the message makes it out. And the essence makes it out, which is that Klal Yisrael is an eternal nation. And it has a relationship with Hashem. And it never abandons its relationship with Hashem. Even in the darkest days of Mitzrayim, it doesn't abandon its relationship with Hashem. There's a Yitzhak al Hashem. They're always connected to Hashem.
Can I ask a random question? Talking about Hashem, you talk about all these things, how, and even from just this 45-minute Zoom conference, and speaking about how you about Hashem, it's so obvious that there isn't Hashem. So the Goyim and the people that have different nations that believe in this person and don't believe in God, how is it physically possible that they don't believe, after all the things that you just explained, that there isn't an Hashem? The people that don't believe there's an Hashem, I don't get it. Is it a real belief, or is it something that they convince themselves and manipulate their own minds and blackmail themselves after hearing since they were a kid by their parents, pointing to their grandparents, that no, that this happened, the Big Bang Theory happened, that there isn't a God, this is how we're supposed to. Like, where does it come from? Serving, not obviously they think that there's a God and it comes from, but people idolize things thinking that that's the actual God. Where does that come from?
You know, the Rambam talks about the origins of Avodah Zarah, that Hashem plays forces.
What's his question?
Where does it come from, this lack of belief in Hashem?
But Christianity is okay?
In the world
okay?
at large.
Just atheism. That's what he's asking?
Atheism, yeah.
But not if you believe in
Christianity as well.
Well,
He
really,
said,
Christianity is
believe in
much
other
closer
things.
to truth.
Well, that's what I heard about the Rabbi.
Christianity
It
is
said,
also, they believe in
what's
Hashem.
Pshat Chetawagel wasn't as such a big punishment. Chetawagel still, they believed in the higher power, they just didn't get it right. But as long as they still believed in it, talking about the Meraglim, they started fighting like as if they don't believe in anything anymore.
Look, the independence of man has a dual-edged sword. On the one hand, we didn't talk about what Hashem is and all. We haven't gotten into any of that yet. But the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that Hashem is independent. And we'll talk another week about independence. So man's independence, on the one hand, is a very godlike attribute. But it also has the ability to mislead him into thinking that he matters more than Hashem, and that his own independence and his own ego is what can drive him. So, and that's rooted in the essential paradigm or conflict of the world, is that man is separate from Hashem, but he's really not. This is, we could go Kabbalistic all day about how is it possible in an infinite God to create a finite universe. We can talk philosophy, ideology. So you could talk Tzimtzum, you can get into all this, but at the end of the day, there is an inherent contradiction, is that to the degree that man thinks he's an independent being, he thinks he has independence from Hashem. So he thinks his own sense of self gets inflated. And that's why ego really is the biggest sin, greater than any other sin. And that's Chet Adam Rishon. It says that before he sinned, all he had was the ability to be independent. Ego. He didn't have chet like we had of guf and all that, but he had the chet of ego, which malachim have that same chet too. And how do you know malachim have the chet of ego? How do we know that? To prove
Because it says that they wanted the Torah, they didn't want to send it down.
They said mashchisim anachnu. The malachim said we're destroying Sodom. Hashem said you're destroying Sodom. I'm destroying Sodom. But there was some level of sense of self. That's why we say on Yom Kippur that the malachim tremble, malachim yechafeza, Yoyim Adin. They're also afraid of Yoyim Adin because malachim could sin also. The sin of malachim, they don't have a body, but they can sin with the ego.
The Gemara says there were the malachim that were punished for various things.
Yeah, if you give a malach a body, he'll be like a human being on steroids. He'll just, if he sins, he'll sin a lot more. He has a higher or a different form of a neshama. Good to see you guys.